Hey guys, it's Mary McIntyre. Welcome back to my channel. This video is a roundup of all the astronomy, sketching, art and craft related stuff that I did during 2020. I always find it's interesting to look back at what I did during the previous year, and a lot of what I sketched last year was part of workshops that I was running. So I'm just going to run through some stuff. So this wasn't a workshop, this was actually some sunspots that I imaged on the 21st of April this year. Really beautiful set of sunspots that I photographed first of all in white light, and then I sketched them. This next one, it didn't turn out as well as I hoped it would, but this was a photograph that was taken late last year, late 2021 actually, by Gary Palmer, and it was some really beautiful active regions, AR 12907, 908 and 909, and I really wanted to sketch them in pencil. It's a H alpha image, and in black and white it was so beautiful, so I just wanted to attempt to do that in pencil. So it's okay, it didn't come out as well as I hoped it would. This next one is a solar picture based on a solar picture that I took, oh god, about 2015 I think it was, and I sketched this as part of a solar sketching workshop. This was in April 2015, I think it was the 23rd of April, still the biggest prominence I've ever seen. I've sketched it many times, but I really like that sketch. This is Bode's Galaxy, done from a photograph but processed and had an ocular view on it to mimic what it would look like if you sketch this at the telescope eyepiece. And that's one of the things that I do in my sketching workshops. Just helping people get the skills to take this to the eyepiece after they've learned how to do it. So yeah, that's Bode's Galaxy. It's a beautiful galaxy, probably more detail than you'll see, to be honest, with the naked eye, but still gets people on the right track. And this is what the Orion Nebula M42 would look like through that ocular view as well. So I processed the image again to try to mimic what you would see through a good telescope. Probably more stars there than you'd see visually as well, but still interesting. I mean, I've sketched these things so many times, but always fun to see how different they look each time I do it, because no two of my sketches are ever the same, weirdly. So the next one is a basic sketch of Jupiter, which again was done from a photograph during a planetary sketching workshop that I did last year. So again, this is kind of photographic resolution here. You're not going to see that many cloud belts if you was to do this at the eyepiece, but again, it's just teaching those skills. Next I've got two sketches of Mars, and I've put both of them in because it's really interesting. They're both done from photographs, and I cannot for the life of me remember whose photographs they are or when they were taken. But every time I draw, things come out differently, and it's going to be determined by what pencil you use, what kind of pressure that you use. And this picture of Mars, although the orientation is different from the next one, the difference in kind of tonal quality is massively different from this next photograph, and no one is correct or wrong. Art is an interpretation of what you're seeing, and even if I was to draw this exact photograph again, it wouldn't look like this, and that's okay. It's just down to a whole raft of different factors. So if ever you try sketching and think, oh, my sketch doesn't look like Mary's sketches don't look like Mary's either, that's absolutely fine. You're not trying to get a photograph here, you're trying to just draw something. This next one is a full moon picture. Very difficult to do on white paper with pencil in some ways, but quite easy in others, and to the naked eye you probably won't quite see this much detail, but with small binoculars you will see something like this. So that's a really good fun one to do, and you don't need a telescope. This is a great thing to do. I created this as part of the images for a Sky at Night article that I put together, and it's just basically on one piece of paper showing sketches of the moon through different parts of the lunar cycle, and it's a really good thing to actually try to do for yourself, just to see how different the moon does look, what the orientation's like when the moon is waxing versus waning, all of that kind of thing. So that's a really fun thing that you can do without a telescope. This picture, the eagle-eyed of you will see that some of this position of Mars moving through Taurus is in the future from when this video was filmed. Again, this was a sketch that I produced using Stellarium as a graphic for a Sky at Night article. So if you keep your eye on where Mars is right now, it's above Taurus, shining very, very orange, really stands out, and this is the path it's going to take, and it's really good fun to draw a constellation and just plot where the planet moves. This is crater Archimedes. I must have drawn this crater 150 times, quite honestly, and no two times that I draw it are ever quite the same. And this is another one that I use frequently in workshops, based on a photograph taken by Craig Howman a good few years ago now. And it's such a great crater to sketch for the first time. So this is one sketch of it, and the next picture is another time that I sketched it, and I've kind of zoomed in a bit more on one compared to the other. Some have different amounts of detail, sometimes the tonal quality is different, and that is fine. It's really obvious which crater it is. If you know your craters, you can tell straight away that this is Archimedes. Just because the two sketches aren't identical to each other doesn't mean that the sketch is wrong. It just means that's the way you drew it that day, and that is fine. This next one is a sketch of Aristarchus and Herodotus. This was based on a photograph taken by Grant Blair, another one that I've used in workshops. I absolutely love this little duo of craters. They're very small, so you need a big telescope to see them in this sort of detail, but getting them when the sun is quite low and you get those gorgeous shadows, it's just such a lovely pair of craters to have a go at. The next two pictures are both of crater Plato, and again done from two very different photographs. One of them is slightly wider field, so this picture was a very small part of a wider field picture taken by Dave Eagle, and this was done quickly as a practice sketch before doing an actual workshop. And I didn't do all the area around Plato, I just focused on the crater itself. And those of you that know Plato would recognise those shadow patterns and just the textures and stuff around it. This is a very simplified sketch really compared to the next one that I'm going to show you, which was taken by a bigger telescope by Damien Peach. And this one has got like craterlets and much higher resolution and sharper peaks and all of that stuff. Neither one is better than the other. At a glance, this one does look better because it's closer to the photograph, but honestly, if you're looking at the crater shapes and getting the shadow shapes in, you've done a good enough job. That's all that's needed. So it's always fun looking at two drawings of the same crater. This was the first time I'd done this. This was part of a gift that I made for somebody, showing the moon and what the stars look like on a particular date that was special for that person. So I used Stellarium, put in the constellations and marked the Milky Way. So I've never done that before. It was really good fun to do it. So moving on to my pastels on black paper, which is definitely what makes my heart happy. That's my go-to. This was some prominences on the sun on the 21st of April. I did image these first and then drew them after the event because there was a lot of cloud around, if I remember correctly, and I was just trying to capture the information and I could draw it at a later stage. It was a really good day for solar activity. So this was just the view through a Coronado PST with a Barlow in there and then an ASI 120 camera. This was another active region a bit further up the disk on that same day, actually a couple of active regions, and this was really active, so I wanted to try to get that stark contrast. All the area around those sunspots was just really bright white, so it was quite a spectacular active region. I never feel I've done them full justice when I look back at these pictures, but you kind of get the idea of what was going on. This picture is of the partial eclipse that we had in December. I was imaging it, but because of cloud I was having to babysit the camera and continuously change the exposure. So while I did get a look at this through the eyepiece of our H Alpha telescope, I couldn't draw it. So this drawing was done from a photograph taken by Stephen Helixer, who kindly agreed to let me draw it. This is the point that we had maximum eclipse from the UK. So that's what that big chunk is. That was the moon passing in front of the sun. This next one was the first time I've attempted anything like this. This was the second ever image that was produced of a black hole. As soon as I saw the release of that image, I wanted to have a go at drawing it in pastels, and it looks a bit weird, but so does the original image. It kind of matches, so there you go. This is a little, I believe it's a Planetary Nebula, Able 31. I did this using the brush technique where I was scraping pastels onto the page and then swirling it around in a brush. I need to photograph this again actually. I had challenging lighting conditions that day, so not the best picture, but I love the colour palette. So on to some moon pictures. Almost all of these full disc moon sketches were done for gifts, either as commissions or things that I've given to other people. Sometimes when I do the moon, I just draw the bit that's illuminated, but more recently I've started filling in the other bit of the moon as well, kind of as if you were seeing it with earthshine, and that makes it look a little bit more complete, even though to the naked eye, unless you have a crescent moon, you can't really see that side very much. I think for an artistic thing like this, especially when half the moon is missing, it can look nice to kind of have that. So that last one was all just past first quarter. This is a last quarter moon, so I did this twice. There were 2 dates, so obviously the libration was slightly different, but I did it in 2 very slightly different ways here. So essentially it's the same moon, but I drew it both times very differently, and they do look completely different to each other. And that's what's beautiful about art, is each piece is unique. If they all looked exactly the same, I may as well just get prints done of them. So yeah, anyone that gets a sketch from me is getting something that is truly unique and one of a kind. Even if I tried to replicate something, I wouldn't be able to do it. This was another one that was a gift. This was a wedding gift for a great friend of mine, 2 great friends of mine actually, and it's the first time I've ever used colour in a pastel sketch of the moon. I just wanted to add some of the blue and brown that you see with the different basalt compositions. I really like how that came out, so I'm definitely going to try adding more colour to them in future. So the next one is something a little bit different. I experiment with space art using fluid acrylics, and this was a technique that I wanted to try using a funnel and a cake decorating rotating platform where you basically just let a bit of the paint go and tap it down and so on. And the video of me creating this is over on my art and craft YouTube channel. So this is abstract art. This is not supposed to look like an actual galaxy. This is purely abstract art, so not for everybody, but I really love experimenting with that stuff. On to a couple of craft related things. For Sky at Night this past year I made a sundial. As always, the door goes when you're in the middle of recording. So this was a sundial made from 2 pieces of cardboard and a straw, and it's incredibly effective and really good fun to use. This was one of my favourite things that I've made this year, and it's basically based on the mirror on the James Webb Space Telescope. I crocheted all of those hexagons, crocheted them all together and turned it into a cushion, and I love it so much. People that aren't into space think it's a beehive, or honeycomb. I don't care. I love this cushion so much. So yeah, I really enjoyed making that, and again the video is on my art and craft channel. Another of my favourites, another Sky at Night project, was this light up constellation board, and rather than having a black board just with lights, I wanted to add some of Barnard's Loop and some of the nebulosity around Orion. I really want to make more of these, but we just don't have wall space for them. Super fun to do, and yeah, that was in the December issue of Sky at Night, so I really loved making that. Just one of my favourite projects ever. It's on our wall in the living room. 2 final sketches to finish that are from Space Probe. So this was from the first release of the James Webb. This is a part of the Eta Carina Nebula that I sketched based on that original photograph. I love this. It's not exactly as I intended it to be, but I still love it. I'm really happy about it, and there's a video on my channel where I talk about how I actually created that. And finally, again, one of my favourite things that I've ever created was this pastel sketch based on the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter image of the sun rising over Tycho's central peak. That still remains one of my favourite images from the entirety of space exploration history, and I've wanted to create a drawing of this ever since I first saw that picture years and years ago, and I finally did it, and it took me so long. I can't tell you how long this took, but just amazing. I really love it. It's framed and on the wall, and yeah, I love it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. A bit different. I just wanted to give you a bit of a roundup of what I was up to from a creative standpoint. There are prints of a lot of these on my website, so if you are interested in buying prints of any of these, on my website there's a shop where you can buy them, and if you want them in a bigger format or on canvas or whatever, just let me know and I can get that done for you. So take care, I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.